Dear students, I welcome you in this lecture on the topic shares and dividends. In this lecture, we are going to see some formulae on shares and dividends. Using this formulae, one can solve any example on shares. So let us see the formulae for shares. The first formula which we are going to see is number of shares in terms of face value. So number of shares is equal to face value of all shares divided by face value of one share. Face value of one share. So number of shares is equal to face value of all shares upon face value of one share. It is also given by face value of all shares, or we can rewrite the formula. Note that this formula is same as this. So if I take face value of all shares, then it is equal to face value of one share into number of shares. If you think, these formulas are quite easy to understand. For example, if face value of one share is rupees 10 and if there are 10 shares, then face value of all shares will be 10 into 10, that is rupees 100. So it is quite similar formula, quite simple formula I mean. So face value of all shares is nothing but face value of one share into number of shares. Next, we will see the formula for number of shares in terms of market value. So number of shares is equal to market value of all shares upon market value of one share. Market value of one share. So again this formula is same as this. Market value of all shares equals to market value of one share into number of shares. Finally, let us see number of shares in terms of dividend. Number of shares in terms of dividend. So number of shares is equal to dividend on all shares, which is called as total dividend. So dividend of all shares, dividend on all shares divided by dividend per one share. So total dividend divided by dividend of per one share, we get number of shares. So dividend, this formula is again equivalent to dividend on all shares is equal to dividend per one share into number of shares. So let us recall three formulae for number of shares which we have seen. So we have seen formula for number of shares in terms of face value, then in terms of market value, and in terms of dividend. So these are first three formulae for number of shares or for face value, market value and dividend. Let us see the fourth formula for rate of dividend. So rate of dividend is equal to dividend per one share upon face value of one share into 100. So this is rate of dividend in terms of one share. Remember the formula for rate of dividend. It is dividend per one share upon face value of one share. There is similar formula based on all shares. So for all shares, rate of dividend is dividend on all shares upon face value of all shares into 100. So basically, if you note, rate of dividend is always expressed as rate of dividend is always expressed as per expressed in terms of percentage of face value. It is never calculated. It is never calculated on market value. It is always calculated on face value. Rate of dividend is always calculated as a percentage of face value. Further, you note that rate of dividend is equal to rate of dividend is equal to basic formula is dividend upon face value into 100. So we can have two formulae for rate of dividend depending on whether we consider one share at a time or whether we consider all shares at a time. So this is about rate of dividend. Then we can have also the formulae for dividend per one share. So dividend per one share is rate of dividend into face value of one share into 100. So rate of dividend into face value upon 100. Again, there will be two formulae, whether we consider one share or whether we consider all shares at a time. But basic formula is going to be rate of dividend into face value upon 100 for dividend. So these are formulae for dividends. Now we will see the return. Return is nothing but net profit that one gets. So return can be thought as net profit or net loss in case there is loss. Net profit or net loss. So if there are three possibilities. First possibility, there is no resale. In that case, return is equal to dividend. If there is no resale, then return is obviously the profit, which is dividend. If there is resale of shares with profit, then return is equal to dividend plus profit on resale of shares. If there is resale of shares with loss, then return is equal to dividend minus loss on resale of shares. So we have three possibilities. First possibility, no resale, then return is equal to dividend. Second possibility, there is resale of shares with profit, then return is equal to dividend plus profit. So in first case, return is equal to dividend. In second case, return is equal to dividend plus profit. In third case, return is equal to dividend minus loss. The third case is resale of shares with loss. So return is equal to dividend minus loss in third case. Finally, we will see the formula for rate of return. So rate of return can be considered using one share or using all shares. One share, one share, or by considering all shares. So note the difference. Rate of dividend, rate of dividend is always calculated as percentage of face value, whereas rate of return whereas rate of return is always calculated as percentage of market value. So dividend is calculated as a percentage of face value and rate of return is calculated as percentage of market value. So we have two formulae for return. Rate of return is equal to return per one share upon market value of one share into 100. And if we consider all shares, then the formula will be return on all shares divided by market value of all shares into 100. So these are two formulas for rate of return based on whether we consider one share or whether we consider all shares. Finally, we will see the formulae for return per one share. So return per one share is given by rate of return into, so it is given by rate of return multiplied by market value divided by 100. Again we will have two formulae based on whether we consider one share or whether we consider all shares. So in first case, formula for is return per one share is equal to rate of return into market value of one share upon 100. And in second case, the formula is return on all shares is equal to rate of return into market value of all shares upon 100. So we have seen 10 different formulae for rate of dividend, rate of return, face value, market value, number of shares, and so on. I request you to go through all these formulae once before we solve examples. Thank you.